So, for example, when we're talking about moving through, drifting through the zone, walking, whether that's a drift or a situation, in a topological sense, moving through a space, something like the Aboriginal Dreamtime is a very good model for what we're trying to do. To find a digital equivalent, we can learn from the way the Aborigines mapped fully their cosmology and their mythology onto the landscape in which they lived. And as nomads, they would do their walkabouts, or they would do their tours of their space, and their memory system was that as they came to each of their sacred spots, the wise man or woman would tell the tales, tell the stories that were cued or triggered by the landscape in that particular place. And so as they moved through the seasons, moved through their space, there was a kind of a cognitive map or an allegory or a mystery that was formed, a collective story in which the culture and civilization and the landscape that the people moved through were one and the same.
What I'm interested in figurative language, especially metaphor, and just the translation of metaphor in Greek means to carry across. And if you translate metaphor into Latin, it translates as transfer, which literally means to carry across. The Latin for carry or bear is ferro ferra tuli latus, and actually translation is the same as transfer, just uses a different principal part at the tail end of the word. So there are equations between the word metaphor, transfer, and translation, and they're all connected in the sense of literally meaning to carry across.
There's, of course, another model for this, again, that we are looking at and learning from. We call these relays. A relay is not exactly a model. A model is something that you take over whole cloth and just try to repeat it. But what a relay does is it gives you an idea of a direction that you want to go in. You don't want to replicate the thing completely, but you want to learn from it and in order to do your own thing. Well, another relay for the Cora is mnemonic memory systems, and especially medieval culture, manuscript culture, from the Romans through to the beginning of print. The way schooling worked in church schools and universities in Europe at that time was that students were trained in memory.
So if you think about what metaphor is actually doing in language, it's carrying across some sense of meaning from one word to another. I mean, that's the fundamental function of language, you think about it. So, for example, if you have metaphor, my love is a rose, there's something about the love, your lover, that's being compared to a rose. So something about the rose is being carried across to the lover. Now, if you're interpreting that poem, it's up to you what you carry across, whether it's the beautiful smell or the thorn, the sharp thorn. The other interesting thing about metaphor is not only are you carrying across meaning, but you're crossing an implied space. So it's this notion of spatiality that interests me also. And there's been some work done on that, cognitive science, work of Mark Turner in Literary Minds, and George Lakoff, Mark Johnson in a book called Philosophy in the Flesh. Talk about cognitive metaphors, the metaphors we live by. So, and he talks about there being the body, since the body has a brain that lives in a three-dimensional space, it incorporates three-dimensionality and motion into its metaphorical concepts.